Well, Razorback fans, the question is a simple one. Is Taylen Green the guy for the Razorbacks moving forward? Well, let's talk about it on today's Locked On Razorbacks podcast.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I am your host, John Neighbors. I am also the host of Inside Arkansas Live, which you can catch every weekday starting at noon on Inside Arkansas and InsideArkansas.com. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Hope everybody's having a wonderful Tuesday. As we know that we are going to be turning the page as much as you won't want to. But we're going to be turning the page and looking ahead a little bit to where Arkansas is going to be facing off against Tennessee. And we'll talk about some of those things too, especially dealing with a few things of Sam Pittman and what he had to say here in the press conference today. And, you know, we'll dive into that. But I would gauge, though, from my show that I had yesterday and a lot of the reaction that people had after the Razorback loss to Texas A&M, which we'll talk about what also went wrong against them, at least what Sam Pittman said. I wanted to bring this up when it came to a very simple thing of Taylen Green. Is he the guy? Taylen Green has not exactly just thrown around the stats, to be perfectly honest. Yeah, you're talking about 5 games in this year. Taylen Green, at this point in time, has thrown for 1,200 yards. He's got 5 touchdown passes, 5 interceptions, and has completed roughly 55% of his passes. So 54, I guess, to be exact, percent of his passes. Hasn't been great at times. Got really neutralized in the rushing attack against Texas A&M. In fact, when it was going on and he was trying to roll out, you could tell Texas A&M had really put an emphasis on keeping him contained, and they did a really good job. So sometimes you're going to run into better athletes. Sometimes you're going to run into a better front seven. But again, the question becomes, if you're Arkansas, if you're Taylen Green, if you're Sam Pittman, do you believe in him? Do you think that he's the guy? Do you want to see it mixed up? Is he even the problem? Well, Sam Pittman talked about Taylen Green and him being in these situations and the leadership that needs to come out, especially when things are going really tough.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's not fair to ask him to be perfect, but I think so. And he's working at it. I think he'll get a lot better with it. There's a lot out there on his plate, but I think if you ask him the same question, he'd say yes. So he's certainly working at it. Bobby's working with him on it. I'm not really concerned about him getting better at it. I think he'll get better at it and have a good week.
So you get that from Sam Pittman. I mean, he's doing what he's supposed to be doing. He's protecting his guy and maybe giving you a little bit of coach speak and everything. But, you know, that's a legitimate question that Razorback fans need to have about Taylen Green, because we mentioned it on the podcast yesterday. There were some times where he was struggling and rattled and needed to calm down and had all that going on. And I feel like he's still potential is there. I think that the leadership qualities, they're definitely there, and he has shown it at times. But as we all know, getting rattled, and especially in a game against an SEC opponent, is not something you can afford to have with a seasoned veteran quarterback. Now, do not take this and misunderstand it or misconstrued it or anything. I'm not making excuses for Taylen, for anybody in this situation, so please do not take it any other way than this. But I do think it needs to be provided with some context. Taylen Green is going through right now what all of us, Razorback fans and everybody alike, was hoping that wouldn't be the case. Going through the issues of getting into SEC and SEC play and the lights maybe being too big. I'm not saying that Taylen Green can't overcome this, but it certainly seems like a quarterback who played at Boise State and had average numbers there at best has come into the SEC and has faced adversity like he's never felt before, and has felt pressures that he's never felt before. You know, I don't care what anybody says. When you're a quarterback like Taylen Green and you're playing in those atmospheres that you were when you're at Boise State, and then you transfer into Arkansas, suddenly things change. Suddenly you're on national TV each and every day. Suddenly you are being watched by everybody. You're playing in AT&T Stadium, Dallas Cowboys, where they play, where their home base, on national TV, 2:30. All eyes are on you. And they're expecting you to perform. You're there in front of, I don't know how many fans ended up being there at the game in Arlington, if it was 50, 60,000, whatever it was. But everybody's there watching you. And there's a lot of pressure, especially because, you know, you got to win. But also, you don't want the season and the games and everything to get away from you. You haven't played bad, you haven't played great at times, but you don't want it to get away from you where suddenly it becomes such a major problem that you can't overcome it. And so when all those factors are playing into it, and of course adding to the fact you haven't played very well, adding all those factors into it, my process and my thoughts, maybe it's a reckless assumption, was that it was just a little too big for Taylen Green. And it's a matter of working through that. Because I guarantee you he's not the first quarterback that's gone through it. I mean, shoot, we know that. Quarterbacks go through it all the time. But the problem is you can't afford time. Time is not on your side anymore. It's now. You're 3-2. You're 1-1 in SEC play. You just lost a game that you probably should have won once again. And now you have your schedule coming up that is the most absurd and difficult schedule you could see in a stretch of SEC play, especially at home. Like, it's going to be tough. You got Tennessee coming to town, number 4 team in the country. Does the pressure get any easier? Absolutely not. I mean, come on. You got Kirk Herbstreit and Chris Fowler coming to call your game. You're going to be on ABC. You're going to be in front of your home fans who are sitting back, and they'll be excited. They'll be a good crowd. It'll be everything. But most fans are sitting back and be like, okay, guys. Okay, Taylen Green. What do you got? You haven't showed us much. What do you got? We're not going to be all in. We're not going to be going crazy. We're not going to be confident in you until you show us something. And I feel like there's probably, who knows, maybe some teammates of his that kind of feel that way. The pressure's on him, and I don't wish it upon anybody. It takes a certain person. It takes a certain mentality, certain type of player to be able to work through that and to overcome it and to deal with it. And I think Taylen Green does have the traits to work through that. But he has to do it, and he has to do it now. If you were rattled against Texas A&M in that situation, in a one-score game, where half the fans there were on your side, how am I supposed to believe that you're going to go up against Tennessee, who statistically speaking as one of the best offenses and defenses in the country? They've had a whole bye week to prepare for you. How am I supposed to feel confident in you? Well, that's not up to me. It's not up to anybody as far as a fan goes or anybody. It's up to you. This is your time. This is your time to shine. There's no more excuses. There's no more wait and see. There's no more patience. It's gone. It's done with. This is your time. Can you get over it? I hope. I really hope so. I want that game against Tennessee to be something of note, to at least be, I'm not expecting Arkansas to win, but it would be really nice to go into the fourth quarter with the game still in doubt. I don't think this team's going to give up. I don't think they're going to give up on Taylen Green, nor should they. Taylen Green needs to be the starter. He needs to be QB1. I believe he's good enough for that and has earned that. You're going to make mistakes. You are who you are. You're never going to be perfect. You want every quarterback to be perfect, but you're not going to be. But the thing that you cannot afford is being rattled, is feeling that pressure and letting it get to you and impacting your play. You cannot have that. Offensive line's got to be better for blocking for him. And Arkansas just has to do a better job of protecting him. Not only physically with the offensive line, but also mentally when it comes to coaches and putting him in a position to succeed no matter what. You don't have a warm-up game against UAPB or anything like that anymore to try to gain that confidence back. You got Tennessee coming to town. Find a way. Find a way to make it work. All right, we'll talk about what went wrong against Texas A&M, at least what Sam Pittman had to say here in just a second. So stay with us here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. All right, folks, here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast, it's time to highlight my Roy Player of the Week. Roy is a new platform that lets fans make contributions directly to their favorite athletes. You can download Roy for iOS or Android and enter referral code Locked On, and you'll automatically be entered into the sweepstakes to win $5,000 cash. No purchase necessary and voided when prohibited. I gotta tell you, it was really tough to decide who was going to be my Roy Player of the Week, but I'm going to go ahead and give it to my guy, Landon Jackson. Landon Jackson. It's probably nice to say that because Landon Jackson finally came out of his shell and had a great game against Texas A&M. He had 8 total tackles, 6 of them being solo, 2 sacks, 3 tackles for loss, doing the things that you expected him to do as the preseason All-SEC defensive lineman that he was selected to be. Hopefully he can build upon it, but he definitely had a great game against Texas A&M. And I'm telling you right now, I'm giving Landon Jackson $100 on Roy. So if you were impressed, as I was, with his performance on Saturday, you can show him some love too. Just hop onto Roy and throw in a few bucks. If everyone pitches in just $10, it adds up fast for Landon Jackson. Now you have the chance to show your appreciation for Landon Jackson in a standout performance of the week, as well as what he'll continue to bring to the Razorback program. Get off the sidelines and get into the game with Roy and support the players and change the game with Roy. All right, so moving on into the next segment of the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. So, we had some interesting things said by Sam Pittman today, I should say. And, a lot of times it's kind of previewing Tennessee a little bit, and we'll talk about that. But I always like to hear immediately after a press conference, coaches haven't had a chance to watch film. They haven't had a chance to really dive into a few things. But Sam Pittman has now had time to reflect upon the Texas A&M game. And I know we're going to move on, but I think it's always interesting to hear from Sam Pittman and to hear from any coach about things that went great, things that didn't go so great. But Sam Pittman was asked about what went wrong against Texas A&M. It's a little bit of a lengthy answer, but I think it's important to get into. So here's what he had to say.
Well, let's go with the fumble first. There's 2 ways you can play it. You can charge it, or you can stand on the line of scrimmage and read the mesh. And they had 2 different ways to play it. I think, we should have just gave the ball, and they had us on that particular one. Part of it was a little bit of a snap problem too, so it slowed down the timing of it. But we probably should have just gave the ball and took our lumps on that one, because I believe they were mesh charging Taylen, and fumbled football, and obviously bad timing, bad place, all of it. That, if we'll just hold on to football, we'd be a really good football team with all the problems that we've got to correct. The second one, I think we've had so many pressures that we've got a lot of problems. We've got a confidence problem. We have a quarterback that's not confident. There's times when he can stand in the pocket that there is one there. There's times when he stays in the pocket and he gets hit. So probably in between, and we tried a lot of quick passing game as well. But I think between that, moving the pocket and running the football, the problem with that was early in the game, we lost a running back early in the game. 22 was in and out of the game. R-Dub was suspended, which he's not anymore, by the way, but he was suspended. So it takes a little bit of our tight ends. Both of them didn't practice a whole lot last week, so it takes a little bit of the running thought out of it. But I think to take pressure off of the offensive line and our quarterback, we have to run the ball a little bit more, quick game, get the ball out of his hands so we can build some trust between him and the offensive line. And he's got to get better. The offensive line's got to get better. I think Tesla was a big shot in the arm for us. I think he came in and made some plays, and I believe that gives Taylen another option to go to. So there's a lot of reasons behind that. If I was going to put it in a nutshell, I'd say we got to protect the front of the pocket better. I didn't think our tackles I thought they played better than they played the week before. But there's no place for him. A lot of times there's no place for him to step up. And so the pocket's getting collapsed on him, which makes you look worse at tackle. Even the last one, that we fumbled the football on. I mean, Carmona had him 11 yards deep. You can't ask a guy to do more than that. He flushed because the front of the pocket was coming at him, and the guy got the strip fumble. But I thought our tackles were better. We've got to continue to get better, but I think the front of the pocket is something that we're certainly going to address this week as well.
So Sam Pittman went into a few things there. Went to a few things that went wrong against Texas A&M, and I didn't really have any problems with anything that he said, and didn't have any disagreements. I think it was interesting when he's talking about building the trust back, because he didn't say, continuing to build the trust. It was building the trust back for Taylen Green, the offensive line, which tells me that there is lost trust, which I understand. Offensive line got worked pretty heavily as far as the pass protection goes on Saturday, and Taylen is already a little bit rattled, and that just makes it even worse. So, yeah, I totally understand the issues there and totally understand Sam Pittman and taking that approach. It's got to be pretty frustrating for Taylen, but for anybody in that situation to try to, have that confidence. But what I think is the obvious deal, or maybe obvious is the wrong answer, but the frustrating thing is that right now, I hate to be this guy, but I'm going to be this guy. You should be 5-0. You should be 5-0. You should have beaten Oklahoma State, and you should have beaten A&M. And what's so frustrating about it is it's not necessarily about a play or couple plays that Oklahoma State or Texas A&M made, which, don't take it misconstrued again, but it's not necessarily about that as much as it is about Arkansas giving them the opportunities to make those plays. The Oklahoma State game was long ago, but we all remember all the things that went wrong for Arkansas, for Oklahoma State to even have a chance in that game. And then it's kind of been the same thing in this particular game against Texas A&M. If Arkansas does not fumble that ball right there near the goal line, I believe Arkansas wins. I mean, it changes the trajectory of a game, and who knows what could have happened. But I just believe, because Texas A&M is not that great of a team, you do just that, you erase just that one mistake, you win the game. Same thing with Oklahoma State. If you don't throw that pick six, or if you don't have that muff punt, or if you don't miss that field goal, whatever it is, you win the game. And that ends up being the ultimate problem with this team, and why it's almost so frustrating where you care so much, because you're right there. You're right there. Folks, you are right. You are so unbelievably close to being 5-0 right now. You should be 5-0. But it doesn't matter, because what you should be, your record is what it says you are. But you should be 5-0, and you're not, because of your own mistakes. So a lot of those mistakes, though, kind of stem from the offensive line not protecting. And Taylen Green being rattled. I think that I agree with Sam Pittman. If that problem gets shored up, I'm not saying it will, but if it gets shored up, that opens up the doors for a lot of other things to get fixed. But a lot going on, a lot of problems with Arkansas right now, and a lot of it is self-inflicted wounds that they keep putting on themselves. So, but we'll talk a little bit about Arkansas and Tennessee, because it's kind of funny. A little funny comment there from Sam Pittman. We'll talk about that in a second, so stay with us here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. All right, all you Razorback fans out there, I got to tell you you got to continue this season big with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, and you can view live play-by-play, so much more on the same page where you place your bets, and that's only with FanDuel. Plus, you get this great deal. You get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Check it out today. FanDuel.com to get started. It's FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. All right, so final segment here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Arkansas and Tennessee football. I don't know about y'all, and maybe some of you can't remember this far back, but I always felt like in the late 90s, early 2000s, this was a great rivalry, or at least, I shouldn't use rivalry because people are going to take that for whatever. It was just a great series. Arkansas, of course, lost most of them because that was in Tennessee's heyday under Philip Fulmer, but so many games were so epic and so close and had so much going for it. I look back on it, of course you had the famous 98 Sternover game. Arkansas lost, and they had the redemption game the next year in 99. And then you had in 2000, Arkansas got smoked by Tennessee 63-20. But 2001, Arkansas lost 13-3. I was at that game. That was in Fayetteville. And if I'm not mistaken, that was the very first game that they had the new Jumbotron, the new TV, the new renovations done. May have been the second game. But I remember it was really early in the process, and it was lightning delays all the time. And Arkansas only mustered 3 points and ended up losing that one. So you had that. And then 2002 was a game that Arkansas lost in Knoxville, where it went to 6 overtimes. 6 overtimes. Arkansas had that game, and Matt Jones made some big plays. Richard Smith had a 92-yard touchdown reception. But Brennan O'Donohoe misses a couple field goals. I think a big field goal in the overtime period. And Arkansas ended up losing that one. Then Arkansas smoked them when College Game Day came to town, 2006. But the main thing that I thought was kind of crazy was Arkansas's beaten them past 3 times they've met. 2011, the Joe Adams play. 2015, they're in Knoxville, where Arkansas stormed back and got the win. And then in 2020, when they played them in Fayetteville during the COVID year. Ironically enough, those were all with 3 different coaches. First, Derek Dooley, then Butch Jones, and then Jeremy Pruitt. Well, anyway, Sam Pittman was kind of asked about that 2015 game and when he was a coach, offensive line there. And had some pretty interesting insight on it.
When we went down there a few years back, they returned open. They returned open a kickoff for a touchdown. We were down fast down there, and then offensive line and running backs, and they kind of took the game over back then. We run a lot of pin and pulls, and end up kicking a field goal right before half, and we missed the swiper. I'll never forget that. He came right through there, and he should have blocked it, and he didn't. And then when I got the job here, one of my former old linemen over at Tennessee, I was talking about when I was an O-line coach, I said, hey, I'm going to Arkansas. I think I came from Arkansas here, or from Tennessee here, right? Yeah. And I said, hey, I'm going to Arkansas. He said, hey, there ain't nothing to do. I'll never forget. He said, there's nothing to do in Arkansas. We played there. I said, yeah, it was 44-10, bro. I said, there might not have been much to do, but them hogs were whipping your butt, when we were laughing about it. But I do remember those stories. Tennessee was a short time for me. I think it was about maybe 11 months or something. But I'm awful happy Derek Dooley hired me and gave me that opportunity.
So just a kind of a fun little story there, like Sam Pittman making the joke about there's nothing to do there. It's like, we smoked you. They smoked you, so they don't care if there's much to do there. But yeah, Arkansas's had success, 3 straight wins, and granted, those were during times of Tennessee not being what they are now. So it's going to be a tough one. But this is a series that's been really interesting, and I mentioned the 6 overtime game. I mentioned, of course, the Sternover and then the redemption game. I remember Arkansas. I don't remember, but, looking it up and seeing Arkansas when they went into Tennessee in 1992 and beat the Volunteers, who were number 4 in the country. And that was the year when Jack Crow got fired and an interim Joe Kynes was there. And so there's just been a lot of interesting matchups between these teams. And I feel like I just have a feeling that this one's probably not going to be much different. This is going to be another deal, man. Another deal where it's craziness going on and a lot of wildness. But I'm just hoping that Arkansas keeps it a game because Tennessee's really good, dude. Like, they are really good. And I hate saying that, but they've done a really good job, and Josh Heupel's a really good coach. And I think that right now, if I'm doing like the pecking order of the SEC, I got them at number 2 behind Alabama. Texas, I'm still big on, but Texas needs to play. They need to play a bigger game. I mean, Michigan sucks. So that's like their best win, I guess. Struggled a little bit with Mississippi State. So We'll see. I mean, there's still a lot of time left, but I respect Josh Heupel. I really do. I think he was done dirty over at Oklahoma. And so I'm kind of jealous that they're doing so well. But dude's got offense, he's got defense, he's got a good team, and they're going to come in ready to play Arkansas coming off this bye week. But who knows? Maybe Arkansas can make it 4 in a row. Imagine if that happened. Imagine if Arkansas won this game. Like, you'd be so happy. Everyone would be so happy, but then it'd be like, God, why didn't you just win those first 2 like you should have? You'd be undefeated. But can't think about that. Going to be a big game coming up this weekend. Appreciate each and every one of you listening in and watching into the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or on Google Play. You can also get after me on Twitter at John Neighbors Show for any questions, comments, concerns that you may have. We'll keep it going from there. Same podcast time, same podcast channel tomorrow afternoon. Have a great day, everybody. See you then.